I had a 40-mile drive today, so naturally, I put on some music, as any sane person would do. You see, I'm not one of those audiobook people, right? That puts it on about, like, oh, how can I better improve my life while I'm driving? That's no. Driving is a chore to me. It's pleasure sometimes, right? If you're just kind of cruising in the middle of the night or something. But when you're trying to get somewhere, that's a task. You're embarking on a job. And so I don't want to add another job to that, which is learning, right? So I try to work in some recreation. I feel like if you turn on an audiobook while you're driving, it's kind of like installing your own like backseat pest. It's not a backseat driver. It's like a backseat pest. Like I said, it's just someone in your ear telling you some bullshit, and you're like, "Hey, can you shut up? I'm trying to focus on the road," and you're just back there talking about what? How cold showers, cold plunges? What's this obsession with cold? I wish, honestly, the voice from the back seat would go cold because I don't want you to keep talking. Honestly, a warm body being back there is the most of my concerns. People always say least of my concerns. They never say most, do they? But the thing that was mostly my concern this morning was picking the right music. Because a 40-mile drive, that's a long time, right? I entered in my GPS and it calculated that it would take about 41 minutes to get to my location. All right, minimal traffic. That's nice. But then that was the hard part, right? Picking the music. 40 miles? What? If each song is about 3 to 4 minutes, yeah, 40 minutes, you got to pick somewhere between, like, I don't know, 8 to 12 songs. You got to work in the idea that you could potentially skip a song. You might have one queued up, but then by the time you get to that song, you're not the same person you were when you created the playlist. You created the cue list. So you might go ahead and be like, actually, I don't want that. It's kind of like a buffet. You ever go to a buffet? You pick a bunch of stuff and you have an idea of what that appetite is going to be like when you go and sit down with the rest of the folks. But then you get there, you start chowing down, and you realize, oh, I don't want baby potatoes. I didn't even know baby potatoes were a thing. But I guess with other baby food like carrots and whatnot, and cherry tomatoes, right? They don't call those baby tomatoes. They give them a different name, cherry tomatoes. Uh, I don't want these baby tomatoes anymore. And then you just leave them there, right? But it's nice. A song you can discard immediately. It's like a buffet where if you don't want something, you can just drop it off the side of the table and someone will pick it up. No strings attached. So that's okay, right? If you skip a few. But you gotta account for that. The worst thing to do is you're not accounting for something and then you're, met with your own consequences, circumstances of your past self, and then you blame someone else. It's like, no, you set that up. You've been hoisted by your own petard. You have no finger to point except the one back at yourself. But when you point one finger this way, you're pointing three back at yourself, right? So if I point one at myself, aren't I now pointing three at you? How does that work? I've never liked that, by the way, is when someone's like, oh, when you point a finger at you, you point three, but shut up. What does that even mean? Yeah, I am pointing three at myself. And finish the thought. What does that mean? No, go ahead. What's so bad about pointing three fingers at myself? If I'm only giving you two, I'm giving myself more. Isn't that better, right? To give myself more of something? So it's actually working in my favor. Fuck you. But I went about picking this music, and like I said, it's a hard choice. Because to me, music is a very delicate thing. I can't just pick any song. There are a few songs, I mean, there's an entire, like, playlist of mine that I can't even really listen to. Well, why is that, Garv? What's wrong with them? Do they not work? It's probably because it's muted. Have you tried turning the volume off? Okay, I now know what you think of me. You think I'm that stupid? No. Much dumber. But I had to go about picking some music that wasn't going to ruffle any feathers. However, like I said, there's music that I can't really listen to anymore because it's associated with a time of my life that I don't really want to deal with, right? It's still raw in my memory. The way the past works to me is I have a deep appreciation for it, but it has to be very long ago, right? I don't know the exact day or the exact amount of time, but the way I've thought about it on my drive, I was thinking about this. I think if something happened 5+ years ago, I've come to terms with it and I can be deeply appreciative of it. And also, if something happened, very recently, maybe in the past 5 days, I can really appreciate it. But somewhere between 5 days and 5 years, I don't like it. I look in the past with cringe. It's very uncomfortable to think about that amount of time because it's still new, but it's not old enough. So it's like a weird thing to deal with. And so a lot of the music, right, in the past, 5 years, maybe there's some tracks I can't listen to. And so I need to deal with that. I need to find a way to rewrite the memories associated with that music. And so I decided to put it on, right? I put an entire playlist that I haven't listened to in years. And I was like, well, let me try to fix this one. When I'm going to on this 40-mile drive, this is going to be fun. So maybe I can associate this good memory with this music. And so I put it on, and not even 3 beats into the song, I turned it off. I couldn't do it. I think the beginning of the song, I'm not going to do it in key because I'm not musically inclined like that, but it went bump, 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 and I was like, nope, that's enough. I don't know. I can't do it. I immediately felt so uncomfortable when I heard those first 3 beats, and then I thought about all the other songs in the playlist, and I was like, I can't do that. It's gonna make me so uncomfortable. And that's the thing, that might seem weird to you because you're like, what? It's just music. But it is not just music to me. It's like, yeah, there's like memories of mine attached to these songs. And I don't think people realize this, but there are songs that I associate people with, and they have no idea. Like, there are people from decades ago now. I'm 26, so that's a real thing I can say now. But there are songs that are, yeah, I've known about for decades, and I still associate them with a certain person. Like, there's that song, what is it, Grenade by Bruno Mars. I still associate it with one of my basketball coaches growing up because there was one day when he drove me to practice. He took me, his son, and his daughter, and we all drove to the gymnasium, and he was playing all this different music, and one of the songs was Grenade. And I remember it was a really, really rainy day. It was a rainy night, and I remember looking out and just at the rain and listening to Grenade, and for some reason, I always associate that memory with that song. So anytime it comes on, I immediately remember how I sat behind the driver's seat in a black truck and listened to Grenade by Bruno Mars with this family. Another song is a Hey Soul Sister. It's not even my mom's favorite song, but for some reason when I was younger, my mom told me, I remember, she was like, this is a good song. I like this song. And for some reason, younger me was like, oh, this is her favorite song, which it's not. But for some reason now, every time I hear Hey Soul Sister, my first thought is my mom. Another song. There was a kid in middle school, elementary middle school, my friend, and we used to call him Blondie. He had blonde hair. It wasn't like an ironic thing. When you name a Chihuahua like a Biggie, it wasn't one of those things. He was blonde. That's why we called him Blondie. And I will always associate the song Love the Way You Lie by Rihanna and Eminem. I will always associate it with him. Because for some reason, he thought it was the funniest bit just to every day be like, hey, what's with that song? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, why does she say you're just going to stand there and watch me burn? It's okay because I love the way it hurts. He was like, why does she love it? I'm like, what? He was like, wouldn't that hurt? I'm like, well, yeah, but it's not like a literal thing. He was like, it makes no sense. And he thought this was the funniest thing ever to like have this angle. And it was. I don't know. The way he told it, he always seemed like shocked for the first time. He's like, I don't get it, Garv. She's on fire. Why'd she be okay with that? I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. It's just like, it's art, okay? It means something different to everyone. And for some reason, you are taking a big issue with it. It makes no sense to you? No wonder you're not in advanced math. But these songs, right? I will hear them, I think, for the rest of my life and always associate them with those 3 people. I don't know why, right? It's not even like something monumental happened. You saw each of those instances are so non-consequential. They're so, yeah, whatever. They just happened and they went on. Those people, if I brought up that memory to them, would have no recollection of it. They might even try to call me out for gaslighting, being like, that didn't happen. You're just trying to make a thing happen. I'm like, no, I swear. Also, what motive would I have? What what am I gaining by trying to put this one out there? Well, no, it's scope creep, Garv. If you plant this idea in my head, how do I know you won't plant other ideas in my head? How do I know you're not trying to indoctrinate me? Like, what the hell? How do we get here? But yeah, I tried to rewrite those memories of those songs, and it didn't work. It's still too fresh. I think the songs I listened to were from like 2020, 2021. I can't do it yet. There are songs from that time period I can listen to, But there's some where I'm like, I can't do that yet. It's too raw. But that's just the file type, isn't it? But where were you going, guy? Where were you driving 40 miles away for? Well, I got invited by the Google Developer Student Club over at UC Davis, my alma mater. I don't know how you can say the phrase alma mater, like unironically. It sounds funny. It seems pretentious, and it's not. It just means where you went to college. But what is it, like Roman or Greek or whatever? What was that language? Alma mater? That's not English. So it feels wrong to say. Why am I saying that? It's like when, what is it? Carpe diem, seize the day? Why can't you just say make the most of it? Why you gotta introduce all this shit, huh? It's old Roman language. It's Roman, right? I think carpe diem made me pretty confident. It's Roman. But I went to Davis because I was invited as a professional in tech. What'd you just say, guy? I think this is the 51st episode, 51st week in a row that we've listened to this. You're a professional in tech? Yeah. Yeah, somehow. I know. You might not have guessed it from this podcast, but I have a full-time job where I act completely different. And I don't even think it's acting, right? I think I am Gauruv in both of these arenas of my life. I think it's just, there's different rules you got to play by. Like if you get pulled over on the side of a road, you're not going to be all jokey, right? You're going to comply with the officer and be like, all right, I got the two hands on the wheel. What do you need from me, officer? And they're like, I want a license and registration. I'm like, permission to reach for the glove box? He's like, easy. Slowly, please. I'm like, all right. And I'm like, oh, no. I almost, my water bottle, it dropped. And then he goes, oh, he's reaching for it. Anyways, you got time and place, right? You got to act accordance to your environment, right? But then the charm of some people is that they're the same everywhere. And some people like to really tout that and hold that with a high regard. But there's some people that kind of abuse that, I feel, right? Have you ever met those people where they're like, yeah, I'm just so genuine, I don't change for anyone. I'm like, yeah, but I think you should. Like, sure, you're genuine, but then you can't be mad when people don't like you. Because guess what? The fact that you are being genuine means that people actually don't like you for you. So actually it would be in your best interest to maybe, yeah, I've talked about this here, but yeah, maybe don't be yourself. You being yourself is the problem. You don't see that? So anyways, I went because they invited me. They were like, we want you to talk about your career. We want you to talk about how AI is used in the workplace where you work and any advice you have for some students. So I got to participate in a bunch of one-on-one sessions. Over an hour, they would bring in people that signed up to talk to us. They have 5 to 6 minute intervals. So we talked to, in theory, it should have been 12 people. I think it was somewhere around like 6 to 8 people because, you run over a little bit. Not exact on the timing. So I did that for a straight hour, right? Just ran through people. Not that way. Easy now, okay? But I gave them advice, which was crazy. Even I was in the room with another guy that's in tech. And I remember 2 people left after they talked to us, and we both looked at each other. He was like, this is crazy. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, these people are like turning to us for advice. I'm like, I know. I don't know who led them astray in life that they ended up here, but yikes. But no, jokes aside, I know stuff. I'm willing to help. Okay, so that's what I did. So we did those sessions, and then after that, I was given an hour time slot to talk about whatever I want. So I just did an episode of this podcast, which isn't an entire lie. I did just talk for 30 minutes straight, which was crazy. And that's maybe, I don't know if my voice sounds a little different. I've drank 12 glasses of water, 12 cups of water today. Track how much water I drink. And I was like, holy shit. The only time I drink 12 or more cups of water a day is when I go on a walk. I didn't go on a walk today. I sat and I listened to tech presenters, and then I did my own presentation. And my throat was shot after that. I remember when the pandemic happened and we all had to return back to school. It was a real struggle. I had to actually do conditioning. I didn't. That wasn't, I didn't train, like an athlete, but I had to reintegrate myself with society from a physical perspective. Because I remember the first week back at school, I was doing so much more talking than I was used to. And I had a sore throat for the first 2 weeks of my last year of college because I wasn't used to talking to people. During the pandemic, yeah, you're cloistered away, right? Social distancing, self quarantining. And so when you go back and you have to talk that much, oh, shock to the system. You're not built for it. Those muscles, they've deteriorated. And I fear I've been kind of living a pandemic lifestyle without the actual virus present. Because, yeah, I don't really hang out with anyone. And that was part of the appeal to go to this event because I did want to go and like talk to these people and discuss, you know, my career and stuff like that. But also something that was highly appealing was like, oh my God, talking to people my age. I don't really hang out with people anymore that are my age. If I do, it's like once every 2 months, right? Like a brunch or a dinner. I don't really talk to anyone my age anymore. The guy that was my age that I used to work with, he left our company a couple months ago. So yeah, I truly, the next person in my team, the next youngest person at work is I think like 37. So this was very appealing. I'm like, yeah, I get to go talk to people in their 20s. And it was great. But also my throat was shot because I'm not used to talking that much. Like I said, I don't really socialize that much. I know you you might listen to this podcast and be like, well, Gauruv, you are such a great talker. Um, so you probably talk to people all the time. No, I'm great to talking at this camera, but that's about it. Maybe that's why I'm not talking to people that often because I do this and they're like, yeah, I've had enough of that. Yeah, you know what? People aren't hitting me up. I usually have to hit them up, which is a lie. I don't hit anyone up. There are a few people, right? Where it's like if we had discussed plans, I'll like circle back. But I'm terrible at like, actually terrible makes it sound, no, I'm just negligent, right? I just don't do it. It's bad. And I know it's bad. It's kind of like my sleep schedule. It's like, this is bad, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So yeah, I went to this. It was great. I did those one-on-one sessions. Then I talked for 30 minutes straight. And there was like a 15 to 20 minute Q&A session. So I was talking that whole time too as I took questions from the audience. I'll actually put this little short video from the Instagram story they posted. That's what it looked like. I think there were no more than 40 people in the room. But it was great talking to them. And I actually got some feedback afterwards. 3 separate people. I counted them because I need that validation. But 3 separate people came up to me and they were like, that was great. I'm like, really? And no one's paying you to say that? They're like, no, this is all me. I'm like, that's great. Wow. They're like, I really liked how it was just kind of like a stream of consciousness thing. It's weird. You didn't really go up there. I didn't go up there with any slides. I just talked with a microphone. And they're like, you just talked, but you know, you went on certain tangents, but it all always came back to what you were saying. Everything connected. And it was enjoyable to listen to. And I was like, I was like, what does that sound a lot like? It sounds very familiar. Sounds like something I do, doesn't it? And one guy asked me, he was like, you know, you did that. Is that something you practice? Like, how were you able to do that? Like, you just went on for about 30 minutes. It was very easy to follow. And it was interesting. That's not just some skill you have. And I was like, this is a very specific question. And weirdly enough, I have the exact answer. It's this podcast. And I didn't know how to describe. I was met in real life with a moment where I'm like, I have to describe this podcast to someone that has no idea of its existence. I was like, Usually I skirt around it, right? Whenever people are like, what do you do for fun? I always talk about other hobbies, right? I was like, I like to walk. I like to read. I like to bake. I like to watch, sports, basketball. It's playoffs right now. But I always leave out the YouTube thing because every time you bring that up, there's just more questions. And I'd rather we don't do that. But now I was met in a situation where I'm like, oh, fuck. I could lie and be like, I don't know, I just got it. But I don't want to do that. So I actually pulled out my phone and I was like, well, I have a podcast where I basically do exactly what you just explained. And the next question always is, right, well, oh, what's your podcast about? But I got in front of that question and I was like, so my podcast, by the way, and I'm probably wondering, what I talk about? I know I talked about engineering for like 2 hours straight here, but I don't do any of that in my podcast. In fact, I probably wondering, what do I talk about? And I told him, I don't talk about anything really, but I talk about a lot of different things, but nothing that matters. I'm doing a bad job of explaining this. This is what I said to this guy. I was like, here, let me just pull out. You'll read some of the titles. These are the things I talk about. So I showed it to him. He was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of get it. And I was like, and I don't talk about those things for the entire 30 minutes. That's like maybe 2 minutes of the episode. And some people get on me about that. They're like, hey, what the fuck? You labeled it this, but this was the last thing you talked about for the last 3 minutes. And I'm like, wait, you listened to the whole thing until you got to that point? That's something funny. Sometimes, new people find this podcast and they click, right, because of the title and my beautiful mug and the thumbnail there, making some disgruntled face, like something like that. Making a gym face or some shit. But the common comment I'll sometimes get, well, if you sometimes get it, then why is it common? Well, I didn't. Calm down, all right? It's all semantics. Sit there, all right? Shut up. But a common comment I'll get is like, hey, you didn't even talk about this until the very end. What the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, but you listened to the whole thing. So, like, what do you mean? I did what was intended. I got you to listen to the whole thing. I remember when I was a intern. This is my third internship at Intel. And there was a big group of interns. And I joined this group of interns. I remember I was sitting there at lunch. And it got out for some reason, like it's some devious secret, that, oh, Gauruv has a YouTube channel. And suddenly, everyone whips out their phones. They're like, let me check it out. Let me check it out. And the guy next to me, he had headphones around his neck. And he was like, I'm going to watch one of your videos. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Or you could talk to me. I'm right here. And he started watching the video about how my car got towed like 4 years ago or whenever that was. And he listened to the whole thing. I think the video was like 8 minutes. He took off his headphones. He looked at me. I realized he finished watching it, and I was like, so? What'd you think? He's like, well, you didn't really, like, nothing happened. Like, nothing went wrong. Like, you got your car back. I was like, yeah. He's like, so why was that interesting? I'm like, are you saying it's not or it is? He was like, no, I mean, it's not. Like, nothing interesting happened. I was like, yeah, but you did listen to the whole thing. He was like, yeah, I wanted to listen. I'm like, mm-hmm. So you were interested, some might say? Like, I don't know how to describe to people that I don't talk about anything, but, like, there's something there. And so that was really hard to articulate with this guy. I know probably some of you can't articulate it either, why you listen to this. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know how some of you articulate this to your friends who you tell this podcast about too, but you probably don't do that, right? You probably watch this in a dark room with soundproof headphones, and you make sure that no one else is going to be home for the next 30 minutes, because God forbid someone walk in on you. You would have to pull up some choice websites, because that would somehow be easier to explain than listening to me talk for 30 minutes. And yeah, I don't know how to describe it to that guy, but I'm pleased to announce that yes, in real life, the feedback is the same. People are like, yeah, you just kind of talk, but I want to listen. And I'm like, oh, nice. Hey, you know what? I can't explain it to you, but if it's working, it's working. You don't overthink it. You just see what works and you keep doing it. Changing lanes is a very stressful thing. Like I said, drove 40 miles, 80 miles today. It's only 40 miles one way. So I drove 80 miles total. And I was reminded that changing lanes it's stressful. And sometimes I notice I'll change a lane and the car that I cut in front, it's not like I cut right in front of them, but the car I pull up in front of will sometimes then kind of sag off of me, right? We'll go like right up against each other, and then I'll pull up ahead and I'll just, give a blinker enough notification, and then I merge into the lane. And sometimes when I merge, the car falls back really far. And it always makes me think, do they hate me? Like, the fact that I did that, did they just curse me out and be like, oh man, fuck you, I'm not even gonna get near you, you stank ass? I'm like, all right, easy. Whoa, I have a lot of those tree air fresheners. I thought I was able to combat the problem you just outlined. But yeah, I always feel bad. I always feel a little guilty, because I'm like, no, I didn't mean to hurt you. No, we can both be in the lane. Like, no, pull up. Like, ride my ass. Actually, don't get too close, because I don't love that when people ride my ass. But I always feel bad. And then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, but anytime someone pulls in front of me, I don't give a shit. Like, someone will merge in front of me. I'm like, yeah, that's how the road works. Sure. But then also, I might just be different. Like, well, I already know that. I'm built different, motherfucker. But no, I think I don't care about most things on the road. I care about my safety. I remember I went to a soccer game with a few friends a few years ago, and I was the designated driver. And we got back to my car, and right when you're going to a sporting event, the parking lot, nightmare, right? Everyone's trying to get out of this maze, but we're all making each other more stuck. I remember there were a bunch of cars in front of me. My car was in getaway mode, pointing outwards, so it was pretty easy to get out. But these cars, right, they kept going in front of me. A lot of them weren't letting me through. And I remember at one point, right, it was only the first car that didn't let me through. The girl in my passenger seat, this is the first time we met. She was like, "You don't get road rage, do you?" And I was like, "Wait, how'd you pick that up?" I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't, but how did you how did you realize that so quickly? She was like, "Because with all the shit that's happened so far, I would have cursed out at least 3 of these people." I was like, "Oh, yeah." I've never used my horn. I don't know what it sounds like. If it doesn't work, I wouldn't know. Because I'm not gonna use it. You could be like, "Oh wow, Garv, you have a lot of patience. That's very mature of you." But really, I'm scared of that someone's gonna like get out of their car and like kill me. I'm scared I want to honk at someone and then they're gonna brake check me. I'm gonna run into them. They're gonna get out of their car and kill me. That's exactly why I don't brake at people. I mean honk at people. It's not because I'm nice. It's because I focus on self-preservation. Someone can cut me off and I can make a big deal about it, or I can just forget about it in the next second and move on. And that's what I always choose to do. So when I, pull up or pull in front of someone and they sag off, they probably don't hate me. They're probably just keeping their distance because you should. Something I've never understood is when cars drive real close to the car in front of them. I know, it's weird. I don't know how people decide to do it. Maybe they just feel confident in themselves. I know even within my family, half of my family drives up close to a car. The other half sags way off. I sag. Still looking for a belt. Yeah, why do you listen to this? Okay, you clicked. Don't give me that face. Okay? We're both equally at fault for this crime. Okay? But I've never understood people that like ride up against a car and they're not riding it, right? It's not like that aggressive, like, when you cut someone off and they try to get back at you by sniffing your back bumper. But a lot of these people are riding this car in front of them, and I'm worried because I'm like, how are you going to know how to brake quick enough? And this is where I'm like, is it just a skill issue? Like, do I not understand what your reflexes are supposed to be? Because if I was in their position and I was that close to a car, the thing I always imagine is if the car in front of them brakes and I was driving, we would crash. That's what I'm always thinking when I'm driving. If the car in front of me just full stops, am I going to be able to either brake in time or swerve around them in time? So I give myself that much buffer. And my reaction rate probably is not that great. So I give myself like a liberal amount of space. And when a car pulls up in my space, I guess they're owning the libs, aren't they? What are we doing? But I've never understood that. Do you guys have that? You probably have certain family members or friends where they're like right up against a car, and I'm like, do you want to read what the bumper stickers say? I can read them out for you. I have great eyes. I don't actually. That's why I wear these. And these aren't even 2020. I have them dumbed down because 2020 is too powerful. They make my eyes water. So I'm like purposely dumbing down my senses. I'm kind of like Spider-Man, okay? I got spidey senses. So if I just take my hearing aids out and wear my glasses, I'm kind of like nerfing myself. I can focus on all my thoughts. That's why this podcast is so good. Because right now my ears don't work. My nose doesn't work. My eyes are, working as well as they can. That's why you get such good material from this podcast, don't you? But let me know down below in the comments. Do you also like to ride up on cars? And I know you guys are great at leaving comments because you left some last week and you gave me really good advice. So I want to thank you. You told me if I have allergies, maybe just stop. And can I be honest, it's going to be embarrassing. I didn't consider that. So thank you, because I definitely would have not thought of that unless you brought it up. So, just to pay it forward, tit for tat, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I do want to give you a piece of advice. For anyone out there, listen up here. If you are not happy, or if you are sad, don't be. Now, I'm not even telling you to be happy, but if you want to remedy the whole like, oh, I'm sad thing, just don't be sad. Okay? Have you considered that? I'm not even telling you, right, to overcorrect and be happy, go all the way over to the other side. I'm saying just be in the center. Okay? You don't got to do that much. Actually, you could do the least, which is like, don't be sad. You know what? It's all your fault. It could be so easy, but you're the one getting in your way. Okay? Emotions are a choice, so make the right one. And speaking of right choices to make sure you leave a like on this episode, leave a comment. I appreciate them so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Another week in the books. I think I'll have to go back and check. I think this was week 51 in a row. Keep it going, folks. We did it. One more week. Memorial Day next week. Have fun next weekend if I don't talk to you before next Monday. All right? Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I'll talk to you next week. Okay?